When I made the last video, I made a big boo-boo. Let me play it and I'll show you what I'm talking about. This little part right here. What we have here is a brand new dial from Radio Days, radiodays.com. And I was even lucky to find out that this dial existed. The person who was instrumental in the whole thing was Greg Van Beek. You remember who Greg Van Beek was? He's the DJ on the Nostalgia Radio Time show. Well, that is totally wrong. Just leave it to some DJ to jump up and grab all the credit. Oh, man. What do we do with these people? Well, that's not true. Actually, Greg Van Beek contacted me and said, John, I love the credit you gave me, and I agree that, credit should go where credit is due. But I'm not the Greg that told you about this dial. And I said, what? Of course, I'm thinking to myself, of course it was him. Well, let me tell you which Greg it actually was. It was not Greg Van Beek. Folks, here's the correct Greg. It's his amateur radio handle is Whiskey Delta 8 Papa Henry Whiskey. And he's on the Antique Radio Forum, and there's his Antique Radio Forum handle, GVEL. He's the one that said, here's a dial. I posted an ad that said I need a dial. And he said, well, here's one. The website claims it's for 382670, but I believe it's a typo. And then he went on to tell me that the part numbers are the same, though. He said, check it out. So this is the Greg who should have got the credit. This is the Greg who took a back seat to Greg Van Beek. This is the Greg who was the victim of my silver moment, my brain fart. Poor fella. So now he's going to get the rightful credit he deserves. Shout out to Greg, WD8PHW. We're beginning to make a little bit of progress on the rust removal. We've got some very deep spots of rust here to go way down into the metal, so I'm really soaking those good. It's probably going to take at least 6 hours of constant soaking and a few spots on the front, but for the most part it's all coming off pretty good. So what I think I'll do is, while we're waiting for that to go ahead and do its work, we're going to go ahead and tip up the old chassis, and I'm going to remove that 10 watt resistor I have there. I think it's an 8 ohm or something like that. And we'll put this 25 watt 10 ohm in its place. And then I'll go ahead and pop out that fast blow fuse. That's 1.5 amps, and we'll put this slow blow fuse in its place. So let's get the chassis up. Alright, goal number 1 complete. Slow blow fuse now installed. Now let me see, we're going to have to go ahead and remove this entire terminal strip and that ceramic capacitor that's on the other side of it, that 10 watt. Let's get this whole mess out of here. We'll of course have to unsolder it here and remove that wire right there. Well, that was easy enough, and I have the new resistor positioned right about where I want it. The heat of that new resistor might interfere with these speaker wires here, but it's not a big deal because those wires are coming out. I'm getting rid of all that junk speaker stuff because it's just frayed, and I've had to repair it with the liquid tape, just to get the radio operational. We're going to put some nice new wiring in there. And I'm also going to have to change out this red one. It's too short. It doesn't reach now, so I'll put a little longer one there. And then we're going to have to run a wire between these two pieces of, or these two contacts right here, between the fuse holder and the resistor. And we'll take the screw nut and washer that we held the terminal strip in with, and we'll go ahead and reuse it to fasten this to the chassis. And we'll have a good heat sink right here. One other thing, before you use these power resistors, I always drill a hole out bigger on both ends, and then after I get the resistor in there, I know which one I'm going to use, and I usually just go ahead and cut it out into just a little loop shape there, so the bolt will fit better in there, and I can adjust it back and forth if it gets in the way of something. Works real good, makes life a whole lot easier. the power resistor is in, and a new length of wire to accommodate it. Fits nice, real good now. And I went ahead and installed a couple of safety caps on both sides of the main line. On one side the ground and on the other side the ground. These are Y2 caps. The guy that sold them to me on eBay said they were Y1X2s, but it turns out they're Y2s, and they'll work fine. One side the ground, the other side the ground, they'll do the job. Now this leaves us with a couple other items to do. We've got to get the two microcapacitors, or two 110 picofarad capacitors, I guess I should say, out of this block here and change them out. We're going to go ahead and put these babies in their place. Okay. Now, I've read on the Antique Radio Forum and had people tell me that, well, in this block where the 2 picofarad capacitors are, those are mica caps, and you don't have to take them out, you don't have to change them. Well, whatever, but not me. I'm going to go ahead and open them up. I don't know that there's mica caps in there. I've never looked in there, never seen it, and I'll bet many of you have never done that either. So guess what? We're going to find out together. We're going to open it up. We're going to find out what's in there. That way we'll have first-hand knowledge. And down here we have one other block. This block here has a single 0.1. Let me get this cap over here. I got a single 0.1 microfarad in there. We'll go ahead and put that one in, okay? So that's the only two things we really have left to do. This should be a real easy switch right here. I just heat up that coil, remove that cap, heat up this coil here, remove that cap, and just kind of slide it off to the side, both of them. Then take out the bolt, and the whole thing should flip around. Of course, I have to be careful this wire right here. See this wire? This wire here goes up inside the IF can, and it is kind of short, so I may have to wind up unsoldering it right here too. I don't know. It depends how easily it flips. You don't want to be pulling on these wires going up into those cans. Well, we got the two 110 picofarad capacitors out of there that are supposed to be mica caps. Got everything cleaned up pretty good. Got a little bit more cleaning to do, but I also decided to disconnect that wire going up into that IF can. I didn't want to take any chances. It's kind of dumb at this stage of the game to make a stupid mistake just because you didn't want to take a little bit of time to do the right thing. Remember, as you get closer toward the end of your project, that's when you make the most mistakes, because you start getting in a hurry. I keep repeating that over and over on every restoration. So slow down when you get toward the end of your restoration. Don't speed up. Here's what they look like. Kind of an interesting little thing. They're small, they're not very large. And this one here appears to have a number 26 on it. That looks like number 26 to me. And they look like they got some really hard stuff in the center with some paper wrapped around the outside. I'll tell you what you do. Let's go ahead and take that paper off and see what's under there. Well, there it is. I have completely unwrapped it. And the question is this mica? And the answer, no, it is not. It is a standard wax and aluminum foil capacitor, only a very small size. Well, that takes care of the first one. We have a mica cap running from here through the cap to ground. Now we have a mica cap here attached here. It runs up through the cap to ground. That's it. Piece of cake. Everything else has been soldered up to include the wire going up into the IF can. Now we'll go ahead and work on this one. One capacitor is all we have left. Once done, the entire chassis will be completed. I got a couple of screws I got to put back up in here, but except for the power cord and the speaker wires, this will be done unless I find something else. Well, that's it. It took a lot of effort, a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of energy, but all the rust and grime has been removed from this chassis. Boy, oh boy, what a bunch of work that was. Trying to get down all the little spaces and everything, the cracks and crevices. It looks like it would be pretty easy, but actually it wasn't. The only thing I have to do now is give it a bath in lacquer thinner with a small brush again. And we'll be ready to go ahead and apply, start taping it off. What we're going to do is we're going to paint the two chokes first and the power transformer, these three. And once they're done, then we'll take care of the rest of the chassis. But I have another problem. I better attend to this right now before we do anything. I didn't really expect to. This wire is broken. We've got some bare wire showing going down into this IF can. I'm going to go ahead and take that nut off and remove this outside cover of this can. And we're going to go ahead and replace that wire. It needs to be replaced. We can't leave junk like this on this radio. Okay? Should be easy. You know, you take the nut loose, and there's a couple of things down here in the bottom that release it from the chassis, and it comes right off. The difficulty is not getting it off. The difficulty is getting it back on. Alright, I removed the nut from the top of the can and the star washer, and we're underneath the chassis, and there's a couple of little legs sticking through here. They need to be squeezed together to release them. And we have another one right there. I don't know if you can see that right there. The same thing. They need to be, they're two little catches is all they are. They just get squeezed together. Once they're squeezed together on each end, the whole cover just comes right off. But you got to go easy. Don't go hard. I just use a pair of needle nose like this to kind of get up in there, you know, and squeeze them together. And then once I get them squeezed together, I kind of give it a little push, and they just go right up through the hole. Piece of cake. I'll show it to you after I get the cover off. Those are the little catches I was talking about. If you can get your needle nose on top, you can squeeze them together like that. Just like that. And then they'll release from the hole. But I was having a little trouble getting them down there because there wasn't quite enough space. So what I had to do actually was switch to a larger set of needle nose, and I got them from underneath and squeezed them together. Same thing. Once they were squeezed together, they just came right up out of the hole. Now you just kind of push down from the top with your finger, and everything should come out pretty good. But first I'm going to have to cut off the end of this wire. I have to lop that baby off of there. Oh, I love chopping. This is the best part of the radio. Just go ahead and cut it right off there. Piece of cake. Matter of fact, I think I'll cut it even shorter. Yeah. Now I'll just go ahead and maybe push a pencil or something like that down through the center as I lift up on the can and go nice and easy, and the whole can should slide right off. It's going to take two hands. I'll come back when the top is off. Well, there was nothing to it. Just like I said, I just used a pencil point to press down a little bit on that screw as I kind of just gently wriggled this thing here, and she just popped right off there. Nothing to it. Nothing to it. Now you got to be very careful. Now this up here's got an awful lot of dirt and grime on it, as you can see. Let me get a light over here. Maybe we can see it a little better. I don't know. It's really, really dirty. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little brush. I'm going to start cleaning that up a little and get some of that dust off of there. But you have to be careful. Don't break any of these wires. There's 4 terminals on these things. What we have here is 2 trimmer caps. One here and one here. You got a bottom part and a top part. Top and bottom on both sides, with a piece of mica between. And this is the wire we're going to be changing right here. I'm going to unsolder it right here, run it back up through this hole, a nice new white wire. I'm going to make it really long, and the reason for that is so it'll help me pull this whole thing up through the hole in the center of the top. Like I said, you know, getting it back in sometimes is usually a little bit harder than taking it off. So let's clean it up and get the wire soldered on and get the lid back on. I don't want to have too much of a delay here on that, but it's something that needs to be done. While I'm at it, I might even shine up the old lid here and see how that goes. Let me cover a little bit about the connections on these IF cans. You'll notice that, you know, they don't, all the IF cans I've ever seen, the connections, they're not wrapped around and around and around the terminal. Wires that come down that are connected to the bottom of these trimmer caps, they just laid the wire against it and put the solder on. So all I have to do is really touch that with the soldering iron, and that wire should just come right off. I don't have to unwind it. Now notice that the wire, when it comes down through, bends up. It comes down and bends up right there. That's exactly the same way we're going to put in the replacement wire. And we're going to use stranded wire. This is the kind of wire that has to flex a lot, you know, when you hook it to tube tops. It's always being bent around, bent around. That's why this thing broke, because it just got so old and brittle. It couldn't take the bending anymore. So you don't use solid wire on this. Solid wire will break. Always use stranded wire in places where the wire moves around a lot. You know, if it doesn't move at all, you can go ahead and put a solid wire in there if you want. I've pretty much gotten to the point now where I use stranded wire for everything. I've gotten away from the solid wire business. Alright, we now have it in place. All I have to do is flow a little solder on there and it'll be fine. It pretty much holds itself. You know, once you get the angle bent right and you get the lead bent right, just kind of get it in there, let it pressure fit itself there. Hopefully it'll stay like that until I can get the solder melted on. Doesn't take much. You get in, you get out. Don't stay there forever. Well, that's it. She's on there. A word of a caution here. One time I bought a radio and it didn't work, and I traced it down to something in the IF can. And when I removed the lid from the IF can to look inside, I found a giant blob of solder right here, where the the transformer lead was coming up. It was one of the contacts. I don't know exactly which one it was, but someone had gone in there and put a huge glob of solder there. And what happened, when he put the lid back on, the solder was hitting the outside of the lid. See, now this one here has no insulation on it at all. Okay, and that's exactly what that one had. And it was another Philco. So be careful. Keep your solder globs to a minimum, okay, and always make sure that they clear the ceramic right here. Okay, they've got to clear the ceramic. You don't want any solder globs sticking out beyond the edge of the ceramic and hitting that aluminum can. Just be minimal with your soldering. Okay, you don't have to have tons and tons of solder. Alright, the last thing I'll show you here is, the reason I put a long lead wire here, a big long wire, I wanted it to be longer than the can, okay, so it'll stick out the top of the can. If you got a little short wire down in this area here, it's a bear. I mean, how do you fish it back up through the hole? You want it to come out this hole right here. This is the hole that right here that lines up with this little stud little thing sticking up here, okay, on this side. But the lead itself comes out through this hole here. So you want it to be long enough so it'll stick out through that hole, and you can use it to to fish everything right back up where it's supposed to be. Right now I'm in the throes of taping off these individual transformers, and I took the screws out, loosened them up so I can get the paper up underneath. The same thing with this one. This one's loose, but this one is not loose. I'm not going to mess with that. That's the power transformer. And I have to do a little bit more rust removal, I noticed right there. So I have that little area right there soaking in navel jelly. However, there are some things in my way here. They're bugging me. So we're going to get rid of one. The power cord, gone, out of my way. Now this second item, this is our speaker cord. We're going to just go ahead and run that all the way down through out the bottom. That'll be two things out of my way. Now that'll leave the dial light and the connector and cord for the shadow meter. And these two things here I'll be working on in a little while also. But right now let's just finish getting this down through and getting things cleaned up right here and get everything taped off. It's going to be real easy actually. It's been really cold the last couple of days, so I haven't really had a chance to get out here and spray. And even today it's still pretty chilly. And I'm kind of pushing the temperature limits, but if I don't get this thing sprayed, it'll take another week before I can get this video up, and I don't want that to happen. So we're laying it on there a little at a time, and keeping our eye on it. We don't want it to be crinkling up or anything like that. It's not looking too bad so far. We're kind of fortunate that all these little transformers are all located in this one little corner. That's kind of nice. Kind of makes life a little easier. Well, the primer did its job, and right now I'm spraying on the first coat of gloss black. We're going to give it probably 2 coats, not much more than that. I think when I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and put a clear coat over the top also. Nice clear coat of that Rust-Oleum gloss that I showed you earlier, or high gloss, or whatever they call it. After this sets for about 24 hours and dries up. Remember, just because paint's dry doesn't mean it's hard. 24 hours it hardens up pretty good. Well, she's looking good. A lot better than I hoped. Now what we're going to do is put a little clear coat on it. Put a little bit of this real nice high gloss clear coat. That'll really help protect it. Comes out of here pretty fast out of these cans, so you have to kind of back up. Can't go crazy with this Rust-Oleum with this kind of a nozzle. You got to really back up with it, otherwise you wind up with a ton of runs. But you know, if I have a run at those, you know, I don't care. No one will ever see it, for one thing, and that just means it'll have a little extra protection as it runs down the side or whatever. We do not worry about such things, okay? It is time to put the gray primer and silver paint on this thing. Big tape job, but you know, it's fun. I just kind of sit there and take my time and do it. Anyway, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some more of this tape. I'm going to tape this transformer up out of the way like that so I can paint underneath it. And then after we get the primer all in there and it's dried for a while, then I'll go ahead and release the tape, set it down, and finish painting around. The primer is on, and we're going to go ahead and give it, you know, a shot of this bright coat, just like I did with the RF chassis. We're not going to put it on very heavy though. We're just going to kind of put it on light. Just kind of give it a nice light coat, because I'll be putting the other paint over the top. Boy, it doesn't take much. Woo-hoo, that stuff covers quick. Big shot comes out of there, but that's looking really nice. I got to admit, the shine looks good, but it's just not the kind of shine that was on the old radios, you know. I guess it would work, but not my kind of, not my druthers, as we say down here. Okay, I'll go ahead and finish this. Incidentally, a couple of questions were asked is why, you know, how did I fix the radio and get it playing again after I hooked up all the gator wires and everything? Well, I took the gator wires off and resoldered everything up. Apparently the gator wires, I had so many of them, was affecting the capacitance of the tuner. It was probably increasing the area of the plates somehow, making them larger, making them, you know, tune out of frequency. That's my take on it. My mentor, Brendan, he'll tell me, you know, 1,000 things different from that because he's very knowledgeable. But anyway, after I soldered everything back up, it just started playing. So it wasn't any big deal that I did, okay? I just unclipped and soldered up. Well, let me finish spraying the rest of this high gloss silver here. Look at that thing shine. Holy moly. Okay, we're ready to tone it down and put the final coat on. Let's get started here. Got a lot of wind blowing around here today. I don't like that. Making it kind of tough, even in the carport here. That's the only place I really have to paint. I may have to wind up putting a second coat on this tomorrow. I don't know. I'm not putting it on heavy. It's kind of light. I want to bring out that same kind of tone we had on the RF chassis. Anyway, I'm not going to bore you with all the red, you know, just spray painting. It doesn't make sense. We'll go ahead and end this video here and get it uploaded. I mean, I did promise you guys that I hoped I'd get a new video up in 48 hours. I'll edit this and start the upload tonight. So, and besides, I want to watch the video of cool blue lights up there in New London, Connecticut, hooking up there with old 64 goat. I guess I shouldn't say hooking up. Just up there, you know, talking to our old buddy, old 64 goat. I want to see those videos. So until next time, I can't think of anything else I need to cover on this. Next time, I hope to have all the paper off anyway and have it all looking a whole lot better. We have a bunch of little pieces that still have to be worked on. You know, we got the little tuner gear here. We got just a bunch of little things that need to be worked on. So until then, this is John.